If your brain is anything like my brain and your thought process anything like mine, you probably wonder about the universe, energy, how it works. And you spend time thinking it through, trying to visualize it, trying to see how energy waves are propagating and what actually happens. I do that. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. And you know what? I wanted to say something. It seems to me like it would be easy to understand why the universe lends itself to mathematics. Here's what's important to understand at the very basic fundamental level. Get the universe, take it completely away, and we need to start with energy. We don't know how it started, but we're just going to start with two energy waves. When you take two energy waves, regardless of where they come from, and you mix them together, an energy wave is like a frequency and an amplitude. All right, I'm going to use a tone generator app on my phone to generate a 1 kilohertz tone. This is what this sounds like, and this is an energy wave. Okay. Frequency, 1 kilohertz, that's how fast it repeats itself. Let's change the frequency. You can change this frequency until it gets too high. It'll actually get above the hearing range, which is 20 kilohertz is the highest frequency that a human can hear. I cannot hear that high, I promise you. But we also have amplitude. All right, that's just a simulation. What I'm doing, though, is utilizing my telephone to propagate, and to generate and propagate, to send out an energy wave that propagates through the air, and we can hear it, we can detect it because it's in the range of hearing. So all energy in the universe is propagating and doing that. Amplitude, frequency, different frequencies. We can only hear between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. Very small amount of energy can we hear. The vast majority of energy we can't. The energy we can see, you can't hear that. We can see it though. All of that is energy, okay? All right, now, the thing about energy is you take two energy waves. If you took a 1 kilohertz like that and a 2 kilohertz waves, and put them in the same space, what's going to happen? They're going to mix. They're going to mix together. And what you're going to get when they mix is you're going to have 1 kilohertz, you're going to have 2 kilohertz, and you're going to have 3 kilohertz. You're going to have the two original frequencies and the sum and the difference. They're going to be multiplicatives of derivatives of the original two frequencies that do what? That are in the same space that now mix. So now we have 1, 2, 3 kilohertz all mixing together almost instantaneously is what's happening at first. And what happens then is that more frequencies are generated, more energy waves are being generated just because they're mixing. They're continuing to mix, and it just eventually it spreads out so far that the entire universe is full of all kinds of different energy. Here, let's just do this real quick. If you mix 1,000 plus 2,000, you would get 1,000 plus 2,000 and 3,000. Which would turn right around and instantly mix and give you 1,000 and 2,000 and 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000, which would instantly mix, and I don't need to keep doing it. This is just blasting away. But we don't interact with it. There's an explosion going on. The universe is exploding in energy that we don't interact with. In fact, I said that wrong. It doesn't sound right. The universe is not full of energy. The energy creates the universe. And we evolved to be aware of just a very small amount of what is here. Matter. Turns out that, an atom is really an energy packet. It's not a solid particle. It's energy that is so dense that as far as we're concerned, it's a solid particle. We just can't fathom the size of something. But the reason everything is going to be lending itself to mathematics, why the universe is mathematical, it's because of that. It's not doing arbitrary different, it's not creating off-the-wall frequencies. It's creating frequencies within its own mixing process that become, again, multiplicative derivatives of the base frequencies. What's going to happen? It's just going to continue to, there's your Fibonacci sequence right there. Scale, scale, scaling, scaling, scaling. It's scaling that way because the frequencies start as 2 and everything else grows from those. You can't put 1 and 3 together and get 7 out of it. But you can put 1 and 3 together and get 4 out of it and get 2 out of it. Sum, originals, sum, and the difference. However, you keep mixing and you're eventually going to have a scaled down 7 from, a 4 and a 3 mixing, right? So all of the frequencies are going to be present. That things are going to be, but yeah, it's Fibonacci sequence scaling. I can see it in my brain easier than I can use words to try and express it. So what's happening then? And is that what's going on? Would that explain why the expansion is accelerating, the expansion of the universe? That mixing is not stopping. It didn't just like, whoop, whoop, it created energy once, and that's done. The energy is continuing to mix. Is that why the universe is accelerating in its expansion? Because it's just creating more energy? I don't know. And bear in mind, the vast majority of energy we did not evolve to interact with, and the energy that it's creating is more energy that we don't interact with. Anyway, just something to think about. Anyway, I wanted to say that. And then, is it possible? Put the foil hat on. I got it this time. I don't believe in aliens, UFOs, or things like that. But I think that if there was a possibility of anything like that, they wouldn't be traveling across the universe. They would have evolved right here in the same space as us, but in different frequencies. We are, and as far as the universe is concerned, we just exist in a tiny bit of it. And I don't mean that volume-wise, that Earth is small within the universe. I mean in the amount of energy that's there, based on the frequency of what we can see, what we can hear, smell, taste, touch. We only evolved to sense a minimal amount of things in our physical realm right here. Beyond that, we can't sense radio waves and things like that. We need instrumentation to do it. Whenever we create radio waves with radios and things like that, we're only doing what the universe is already doing. We're not going, wow, that's magical. The universe is already sending radio waves. All we're doing is learning how to manage them for ourselves. Think about this for a second. You know that light, colors are frequencies. Hearing is a frequency. You can hear energy up to a certain point, 20 kilohertz, and it gets so high pretty soon the ear is not, it doesn't move fast enough. It doesn't, the internal workings don't move fast enough to pick it up anymore. It's outside of the range. That's okay. There's nothing in our world that comes after us, that threatens us, that doesn't, that generates a sound that we can't hear. However, animals will be stealthy when they're stalking, and we developed a kind of a light sixth sense, kind of a sense that something's coming after us. Yeah, we've got that. But we did not evolve to function and have capacity to see or do things outside of what was dangerous to us. If it wasn't a threat, we didn't need to see it. No, that's incorrectly stated too. If it wasn't something we needed to survive, to live, you're not just becoming aware of threats, you're also becoming aware of what's not a threat. We're moving from fear to joy. So, yeah, you're also finding food and sex and whatever it takes to continue and perpetuate the population. Okay, we're all in the same boat here. However, when you see something, when you first see something red, the difference between the energy wave between what you're hearing, that 20 kilohertz, and I can't recall what it is, what that way up here, it's such a fast energy by comparison. In between all those is full of all the energy in between. It's not a void. It's not empty in there, but we don't interact with it at all. There's nothing there for us. It's not a void. Space is not empty. It's energy. So what if they're watching us? We exist inside of their realm in the same way fish exist inside of our earth. But we can look at the fish. We don't go exist with them, but we can go visit them. We can go look at them, but we're really in the same space. Meanwhile, the fish doesn't know we're here. Is that a similar concept? Since things are scaling, maybe there's life right there, but it just says, you know what, I'm going to come and talk to you once, or I'm going to let you know we're here, but then I'm going to pop right back out of your world. It's like they're jumping in the ocean and seeing us. We're the fish. Yeah, scaled up again. Scaling. If to me, that's a possibility, because knowing that everything scales in that manner. Oh, anyway, all right. Well, I wanted to say that. I just think through, and I go, you know what? This is oversimplified, and I don't have mathematical formulas, but it just seems to me if you just keep taking those two base ones and combining and mixing and take what's left over from those and combine and mix, it's just going to continue to sum, difference, and originals, some different than originals, some mixing all the time. You know what? I use an analogy with a radio. You know, you can take a radio and you're like, well, I don't hear or see anything here. But if I turn on the radio and I tune into a certain frequency, I've got my music or whatever it is that I want to listen to. It's right there. So this radio has been created, actually, has evolved to do just that right there. I'm going to hear in this region right here, and I'm going to translate it into something that is in your hearing range for you. So that's what the radio does. I just thought of this. If you evolved to hear between 88 and 108 megahertz, you would hear every FM radio station all the time. You would hear it because it's out there playing at those frequencies. We don't interact with them. Now, if you think about the human organically, that's exactly what's happening. The eye is like a radio, except that it's picking up things in the visual range. It becomes something that we can process, and it's something we see it. The brain sees it different. The ear is like a receiver, but it's only picks up in this frequency range right here. And nose, same thing. It's all of it is quantum. All of it is energy based. That's easy to understand, right? We know that if a particle is no more than some sort of an energy wave that is so dense that to us it's a particle, then what is sent particles going through the air? Energy waves. We're going to smell it. We're going to process it in a way that it's going to give us feedback information about that, whether it's good or bad for us. But it's all energy. It's strange, but the stuff you see, the stuff you smell, taste, touch, everything, it's all energy. And energy from this mixing process. So, yeah, the analogy, when you think about it, you go, oh, well, my eye is really just translating a certain kind of frequency that is necessary for my survival. It doesn't translate to me things that are not necessary for my survival. I don't get to see all kinds of other stuff that didn't bother me. I didn't need it to survive, so it didn't evolve into me. Here's a perfect example of that. We can use antennas and instrumentation, radios, to pick up like radio bursts from stars, things that are, spinning, rotating at a regular rate and things like that. So it's there. That energy is there all the time, and we're getting hit with it. But guess what? We don't interact with it. We had to build a machine to interact with it and show us that it was there. But we did not evolve to interact with it. Didn't need to. Yet that energy that I cannot see here, that I don't interact with at all as a physical human here on planet Earth, is probably 99.99999% of all of the energy that's out there. We are in a very tiny space with so much out there that we just, you know the frequencies, it's all there. You know it's there. We don't interact with it. You just know that fundamentally. Humans are at a stage in their evolution, though, where they still think that the universe is for them, that we're the center of it. Anyway, so, not many people get to this point in thinking. Anyway, okay, so that's it. Frequencies, mixing, more. And we interact with just a tiny bit of it, just what it takes to go from self-awareness, from fear to joy, and everything that exists, all humans and animals. You need to have fear. Fear is the fundamental. Fear is built into us. That's why we tend to, as a species, deny death and replace it with thinking of eternal life for, simple things. We can kind of tell that that's not the case, right? We look at planet Earth from a distance and go, if there was one God, there'd be one religion. What do you see is a bunch of tribes down there, each one of them claiming that they're the one, but that's how tribes work. When it's time to win, you better be thinking you're number one, or you're not going to win. Okay, that's just you look and you see all the religions and you go, boy, if anything points to evolution, it's all those religions right there. Those are tribal mechanisms. When you step back far enough, to the individual, it's a personal, emotional. What is it? Placebo. It's a drug. Makes you feel better by ignoring things, by not doing anyway. Oh, well, I shouldn't get into that on this video. All right, so if you are a thinker, understand that there's so much out there, and and by the nature of it, if it mixes like that and it continues to create new energy, then it's going to mix and continue to create more new energy again and again. Why would it stop? I don't know what drives it. That's not, for me, I'm more interested in understanding things like, why, if the expansion is accelerating, what's driving that acceleration? And is it, and you would think that's a possible mechanism. It's internally creating more because it doesn't stop mixing. It has to grow. However, it's growing in energy that we don't interact with. Think of an explosion that creates the very material that causes it to explode. So as it explodes, it continues to the explosion gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yet somehow in the midst of it, there's some things at a scale in there that are floating along with it that are so small they don't even, or so scaled in such a way, they're just along for the ride and they don't know it. It doesn't bother them at all. Everything is accelerated at the same point. Meanwhile, that explosion is continually going on, but they will never be able to detect that. But they're along for the ride. How things are seemingly mathematical and how that Fibonacci sequence works, and you go, it's just, it's the way the math works. It's the way that the frequencies grow off of each other, that they're growing in that same pattern. Yeah, that's where it comes from. All right, hope the video was interesting and didn't go off the deep end too much. I'm sure there's room for criticism. I have no doubt. I'm not a scientist. I'm a person trying to think it through and just posting ideas. All right, see you next video.